Der legendäre Investigativ-Journalist Seymour Hersh hat einen Artikel veröffentlicht, der die US-Regierung stark in Bedrängnis bringen könnte. Laut seinen Quellen hätten die USA die Nord Stream-Pipelines gesprengt. Was halten Sie von seinen Enthüllungen?
Legendary investigative journalist Seymour Hersh published an article which could cause a lot of trouble for the US government. His sources claim that the US is responsible for the explosions that destroyed the Nord Stream pipelines. What do you think about these revelations?
I've known Seymour Hersh for more than 20 years, coming on a quarter of a century. And I'm proud to call this man my friend. And I put that out there in the interest of full disclosure. Because I'm not an uninterested party. I have a bias towards Seymour Hersh, but it's a bias that is founded in a legendary career of an investigative journalist who has done a great service to the American people and the world by exposing inconvenient truths, shall we say, from the My Lai massacre to Abu Ghraib, and now to Nord Stream. I know, having been investigated by Seymour Hersh myself early on, that's how we met. I know his methodologies are exacting. I know his sourcing is unimpeachable. And I know that his fact-checking is as stringent as a human being can possibly make it. I have no insight into Seymour's story. He did not call me. He did not bounce it off of me. The first time I heard about it is when I read it, just like everybody else. So I can't sit here and tell you that I have inside scoop about the sourcing and the methodology. I, like everybody else, will have to trust Cy Hersh and trust his record and trust his achievements and trust his unmatched journalistic integrity. Let me remind people listening to this right now. Look around you. Look at the state of mainstream media today and ask yourself, why is Seymour Hersh publishing in Substack instead of writing for the New York Times or the New Yorker, institutions he used to write for, but institutions that lost all semblance of journalistic integrity, allowing the pursuit of truth to be compromised by political expediency. There are no real journalists in the world today. There are media specialists. There are propagandists. There are stenographers who basically write down that which they are dictated to from their governmental sources. And when we, the people, whether it's the American people, the German people, or anybody else out there in the world, simply rely upon the mainstream media for our news, understand we are getting that which the government wants us to hear, nothing more, nothing less. And thank God for Seymour Hersh, for his ability to go out, cut through the nonsense, find the hard facts, put them together in a cohesive, logical manner, and then publish it so that we can be exposed to the truth. You said this is going to cause a problem for the American people or the American government? Sure. But what about the German government? Because Seymour Hersh has just told you in unequivocal fashion that the United States of America, together with Germany's Norwegian allies, conspired to destroy a $12 billion piece of critical energy infrastructure that was essential to the economic survival of Germany. For every German out there right now crying about high energy prices, we now know who to blame, don't we? The United States, Norway, your government. Because, frankly speaking, silence is consent. And for the German government to remain silent in the face of this absolute proof of malfeasance by their American and Norwegian allies means that they are complicit in what has happened. Are you a democracy, Germany? Will you hold your officials accountable for what they have done in your name, what they have done to you? Are you a nation of sheep who will simply sit there and bah as you're led to the slaughter by those who you think you've entrusted to protect you?
Laut dem Bericht sei den Planern bewusst gewesen, dass es sich dabei um einen Kriegsakt handeln würde, sollten die Spuren der Sprengung in die USA führen. Ist das möglicherweise der Grund, warum sich Schweden und Deutschland mit den Untersuchungsergebnissen zurückhalten?
According to the report, the instigators knew that their actions would be considered an act of war if the traces of the explosion could be followed back to the US. Could that be the reason why Sweden and Germany are holding back the results of their investigations?
Well, let's just make it clear. It's not going to be considered an act of war if evidence is discovered. It's an act of war. Plain and simple. There is no if and or buts about this. The United States and Norway attacked Germany and attacked Europe. It is an act of war. Had Russia done this, Germany would have been able to invoke Article 5 of the NATO Charter and ask for collective defense. Why isn't Germany doing that now? You were attacked, Germany. You were attacked. Yeah, Germany and Sweden know the truth. There's no doubt in my mind. Denmark knows the truth. Russia knows the truth. Everybody knows the truth, but it's an inconvenient truth because it's the kind of truth that lays bare the reality of the relationship between Germany, Europe, and the United States, a master-slave relationship where the United States is the master, Europe is the slave, a colonial master to their colonial subjects. You exist only for the pleasure of your master. And your master was angry because you dare say we needed cheap Russian gas to make our economy function. We needed cheap Russian gas to ensure that our living standards were high. We needed cheap Russian gas to make sure the German economy was the powerhouse of Europe, a Europe that could rise up and challenge the United States economically on the world stage. But no, your colonial masters didn't want that. So they destroyed this $12 billion piece of infrastructure. In doing so, they destroyed the future of Germany. Yeah, it was an act of war. Germany just doesn't have the guts to say so.
Bis jetzt bezeichnet die US-Regierung den Bericht von Hersh als falsch und eine komplette Fiktion. Wäre Russland andernfalls gezwungen zu reagieren? Und wenn ja, was müsste man jetzt erwarten?
The US government still claims that Hersh's report is a fake and total fiction. Would Russia be forced to react if that wasn't the case? And if so, what should we expect?
Well, first of all, I don't think that Russia is dependent upon the reporting of Seymour Hersh to derive its own conclusions. I have the highest degree of confidence that the Russian intelligence services are aware of much of what Seymour Hersh has reported. Cy Hersh's labors are for the benefit of we, the collective West, the ignorant masses who allow ourselves to be misled by government-controlled mainstream media narratives. Russia is not prisoner to this. Russia has its own abilities. And Russia will make its own decisions. I mean, as an outside observer, I would say that things couldn't have come out better for Russia, to be honest. It would have been nice for Russia, I believe, to continue to be able to provide Germany with 55 billion cubic meters of gas, cheap gas that would fuel their economy and fuel the economy of Europe. That's a nice income stream. But there's a lot of hassle attached to that. Again, Europe is not, as a collective, able to stand up to the dictates of their American masters, and the American masters were not happy. And so from the Russian perspective, there was, this was a complex relationship. Thanks to the United States, Russia has now been able to divorce itself from this complex mess. Russia has just opened up new gas lines going into China, India, Asia. These are economic relationships that are not dependent upon the foibles and the prejudices and the inconsistencies and the vagaries of a Europe dominated by American pressure. So I think Russia secretly is thankful that this happened because it solved a lot of problems for Russia. And frankly speaking, given the nature of the relationship between Europe and Russia today, Russia is in no hurry to alleviate the suffering of the European people, especially when the cause of the suffering is themselves. Russia is watching the European garden turn into the jungle, to paraphrase Mr. Burrell. And I think Russia's enjoying this transition.
Norwegen spielt laut Hersh eine entscheidende Rolle sowohl in der Planung als auch in der Durchführung dieses Terroranschlags. Wie kann die deutsche Bundesregierung ihren Alliierten vertrauen, wenn sie mutmaßlich vitale deutsche Interessen buchstäblich in die Luft sprengen?
According to Hersh, Norway always played a major role in the planning and execution of the sabotage. How can the German government trust its allies if vital German interests are literally blown out of the water?
How can Germany trust its allies? Germany has no allies. Germany is alone. I mean, if you had allies, people would be rallying around you, supporting you, but they're not. Germany is on its own, literally on its own. How can you trust Norway? How can you trust the United States? Let me remind Germany that under President Barack Obama, that bastion of democracy that Germany loved to welcome and continues to love to welcome, you adore him. He ordered the National Security Agency to spy on your chancellor, to intercept her private phone calls. Is that what a friend does to a friend? I asked Germans to walk by the U.S. Embassy in Berlin and look up on top of the roof. You'll see a little trailer type structure there. What do you think is going on inside that trailer? You think it's there for fraternal friendship? You think the American people that operate that trailer are doing it because they love you? They don't trust you. They don't like you. They're spying on you. And they're using the information that they gather there to take control of your parliamentarians. What percentage of your parliamentarians are on the take? How many of them are controlled by the CIA? The answer is a whole bunch. Is that how an ally acts? Your economy has been gutted. There's very little chance that you're going to recover in a meaningful fashion in the coming years. Norway's economy, however, got a boost because at the same time that Norway participated in the destruction of this $12 billion critical piece of infrastructure, Norway opened up its own gas pipeline to supplant the cheap Russian gas with expensive Norwegian gas. Is that the action of a friend? Germany has no friends. Germany has no allies. Germany isn't even a friend of itself. Germany can't stand up for itself. Germany won't defend itself. You know, when you are basically a pathetic stray dog, because that's what Germany is, a stray dog to Europe. You're not part of Europe. Europe doesn't want you, doesn't need you, doesn't like you, resents you. They kicked you. You get the scraps from the table. You don't get to sit at the table unless you stand up and start asserting yourselves. And I don't mean asserting yourselves in the manner that replicates the arrogance and the militarism of the Third Reich, as some are doing right now in a failed effort to breathe relevance into Germany. Don't become that which you have promised never to become again. You aren't a strong nation by sending Leopard tanks to Ukraine. You're a weak nation. You're a strong nation when you stand up and say, we will do that which is in the best interest of Germany, and restoring the Nord Stream pipelines is in the best interest of Germany, because gaining access to cheap Russian gas will make our economy strong, make our economy viable, make us the economic leaders of Europe and the world. And that's something every German should be seeking and aspiring to. Instead, you've chosen to be a pathetic stray dog that's kicked, spat on, and fed only scraps. Your choice, Germany, but Norway's not your friend. The United States isn't your friend. No one in Europe is your friend.